That is the song that I sort of remember going into the wings just a little bit early to watch Neil do that song before going on. And there was an enormous ovation at the end. People really loved it. And I was always rather jealous of him, actually, thinking, how can he get this kind of reaction? I think it was just because there's a certain warmth and sincerity about Neil and an honesty that came across.
Neil Innes was born in the village of Danbury in Essex. As a child, he was an accomplished pianist, but also a talented artist. He won a place at the Royal College of Art, where he first met the other members of the surreal Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, which was inspired by the Dadaist art movement.
Hi there, nice to be with you. Happy you could stick around. Like to introduce Legs Larry Smith, drums, and Sam Spoon's rhythm pole.
We used to meet at the Royal College of Art canteen on a Tuesday night and play terrible English jazz, you know.
And Neil Innes, piano.
It was like letting people in on the tricks of theatre and nonsense and rubbish. It was a kind of feeling of saying, let's throw it all out, like the Dada people said, let's throw it all out, ask questions and start again.
Big hello to Big John Wayne, xylophone. And Robert Morley, guitar. Billy Butlin, spoons. And looking very relaxed, Adolf Hitler on vibes. Nice.
As the Bonzos began to make an impact, Roger McGough was a member of the Scaffold. The two bands would later amalgamate to form the Grimms. Roger recalls his first meeting with Neil Innes in the 1960s.
I was in Carnaby Street at the time with the Scaffold, and I remember going into a shop in Carnaby Street. It was a men's clothes shop, and I saw across the room a painting of the Mona Lisa on the back of a black leather jacket, one of those American flying jackets worn by this guy. And so that's my first meeting with Neil, who was a fine painter, an artist. I mean, his training was the goldsmiths doing fine art, and then on to Central.
And so he'd created the back of the leather jacket?
He painted, yeah, he always did. I mean, part of his thing was, as well as a musician, we know him for, and a polite revolutionary, he was a painter and a great maker of his own props. An array of hats, he was with his wonderful hats. I remember when we did the Rocking Duck tour, he made this big plastic duck on his head. I remember, with particular fondness, a black bowler hat on which he'd painted a runny egg on the top, which dribbled down.
Lord Snooty and his pals tap dancing.
Yeah. So when you saw the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band live, what was that experience like?
They were anarchic. You have to be wary of the explosions that might take place. He liked
literal explosions,
yes, involving dustbins.
On my left, Sir Kenneth Park, bass sax. Great honor, sir. Especially flown in for us, a Sessions gorilla on Vox Humana.
I seem to remember going to see them myself, where Viv Stanshall came through the back of the hall playing a hosepipe and waving it around his head.
Sounds like,
does that sound like a typical performance?
It's not Led Zeppelin, is it? No, it's not Led Zeppelin. Yes, indeed, that was always crazy, always craziness.
And Neil's contribution to the band was that he was the serious musical talent.
Very much. In anything he did. He'd be first to arrive at a session, be it recording or rehearsals, and the last to leave. And very focused on what he did.
I'm the urban spaceman, baby, I've got speed. I've got everything I need. I'm the urban spaceman, baby, I can fly. I'm a supersonic guy.
Now, The Urban Spaceman was a big hit, and that was produced by Paul McCartney, wasn't it?
It was produced by Paul. Yes, a lot of musicians had a great respect for Neil, because he was a fine musician.
I'm the urban spaceman, baby, I'm making out. I'm all about.
I remember Eric Clapton, saying to him they were very jealous of Neil, because Neil always had more fun than anybody else. That he was a musician and took it seriously, but he had fun.
This is the B-side of our platter, sports fans.
Things like Canyons of Your Mind, the song on one of the albums, which contains the worst guitar solo ever recorded, you know, but which he meant, you know.
He aimed to do that.
It's so bad, it's so bad.
What was it about him that stopped him from going down the straight musical path and meant that he had to undermine everything or satirise?
It was interesting, isn't it? Because his father was in the army, I think. He came from a military family. It was strange that. It was almost like a kicking up against a sort of rules. Sort of an anarchic rebel, but a very amusing one and a playful one.
And a gentle one.
Gentle one. He was never drawn to fame. He didn't like the fame that it brought. He played with Monty Python at the Hollywood Bowl. Didn't like doing that. He preferred a smaller audience. Anything above 500 he thought was a waste of time.
Bravely bold Sir Robin rode forth from Camelot. He was not afraid to die, oh brave Sir Robin. He was not at all afraid to be killed in nasty ways. Brave, 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 brave Sir Robin.
We used to have long late-night conversations. Neil was a great one for wanting to talk about things and put the world to rights. Never in a sort of pompous or dogmatic way, just rambling. He liked to ramble. And in the end, we called him, because we were in so many hotels where there was nothing to drink after 11 o'clock, unless you got on with the night porter, who could be persuaded to find some miniatures of whiskey somewhere. So Neil became known as Night Porter Baiter, because he would make these poor people scour through their medicine cabinets to see if there was anything they could keep us going all evening.
And his limbs all hacked and mangled, brave Sir Robin.
It wasn't difficult to involve Neil because he had no great ego. He just had great talent. He could do what we asked him to do a part, we asked him to write a song about Camelot. He would just do it for the joy of working with kindred spirits.
It was a busy week for the Prefab Four as the fever of Ruttlemania rolls over England.
We must talk about the Ruttles, because in a way that is the masterwork, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I mean, he created something that was a pastiche, but then had a life of its own, didn't it? And had a musical success of its own.
Yes, he loved the Beatles, and the Beatles loved him, as you say. Paul produced one of his albums. George Harrison was a great fan. But
why do you think it worked so well?
He could, he could do parodies, and we hear them all the time on radio and in parodies, pastiches. Okay, you get the joke. But he was able to produce something that almost could have been a Beatles song.
Shoot me down in flames if I should tell a lie. Cross my heart, I promise that it's true. I've been in love so many times before, but never with a girl like you. With a girl like you to hold and be beside. With a girl like you.
But I remember If I Fell, do, and that's pure George. You know, that's distilled from all kinds of gigging, getting that lovely sound of the simple acoustic. I wrote a similar song called With a Girl Like You. And I remember this was running out on the rushes, and then George was sitting in the road just in front of me, and he turned around and said, "That one's a bit close."
Described as the seventh Python, which I don't think is terribly helpful. I always describe him as the first Neil Innes, but certainly in terms of spirit and enthusiasm and connection and inspiration, Neil was very much like us all.
Where do you think he was happiest?
On a piano, if you do a piano, or one of his guitars, in the studio, causing mayhem, putting on silly hats, and making us all laugh.